As he entered the house, he heard sounds. Sounds he knew well, but hadn't expected. The reason for his early return home didn't matter. He was just home. He opened the door. "John, it's not—" "Leave it." He took a step forward and Pumper began to recoil. John grabbed him by his thinning hair and yanked him back. "I want to destroy you," John said quietly, looking him straight in the eye. "Lift your chin. You can't hit me. I'm going to sue you." "Screw you. Lift your chin." A calm, even tone, not a hint of the anger that lurked beneath the surface. "I swear to God I'll sue you. Do you know who I am?" "You think I care?" Pumper slowly lifted his chin, grimacing, thinking he could take it. John grinned and pounded his fist, several times. "My God, John, what have you done? Brett! I have a lot of questions for you, but not right now. I have to leave so I don't do to you what I did to him. I just want to make sure this concept gets to you. To hell with you." His voice was soft, quiet, and threatening. John didn't yell when he was angry. His voice went soft, a trick he'd learned in business. When he spoke softly, people had to concentrate to hear him. "John, do you even know who he is?" Her eyes widened and her mouth was hidden by her hands. "I'll tell you the same thing I told him. You think I care? How the hell could you do this? In our bed? You're shit. Screw you. 100 times screw you." John turned and walked down the hallway, hearing Maggie begging him to stop and talk to her. "Leave me alone." John walked out the front door, got in his pickup truck and drove to the nearest liquor store. Grabbing a bottle of bourbon, John parked in the back parking lot of the Walmart and watched the traffic, sipping the bourbon straight from the bottle. The phone rang, and he disconnected the ringer with a glance at the screen. The phone was vibrating. Maggie was trying to reach him. He ignored the call the first 3 times, as well as the messages that came in the form of text messages. Finally, coming to the conclusion that he wouldn't get any peace until he figured it out, he did answer the call. "Hello? John, where are you? Come home so we can talk. We need to get past this." "It's destroyed? You mean Brett?" "No, he woke up a few minutes after you left. He got mad, made a bunch of threats about what he'd do to you, and left." "That's good to hear. Did you have fun with him again?" "No, never mind. I don't care." "John, how can you ask me that?" "Despite what I've observed, I can't imagine how I could ask that question to the whore I married." "I have to go. Don't call again." "John, where are you?" He disconnected and went back to talking to John Barleycorn. When he woke up the next morning, he felt the brokenness and pain that comes after sleeping in a pickup truck. He only thought about going to the hotel after he felt too sick to drive. In a way, he'd decided that a hotel bed was too good, that he needed some new torture. He felt like shit. His mouth was dry and tasted disgusting. He needed a coffee and a pee, and not exactly in that order. Looking at his phone, he realized it was 7:30 and grumbling at the pain in his neck, he climbed out of the truck and headed to Walmart, buying a pair of jeans and a new shirt for work. Once he got to the office, he changed in the car. After sitting down at his desk and closing the office door, he looked at his phone again. There were 37 messages, 20 emails, and 3 missed calls, all from Maggie. Bob walked into John's office and waved his hand in front of his face. "What the hell is this? Are you drinking it or bathing in it? Smells like Maker's Mark 2019, such a good year." John smiled for the first time. "Bad day yesterday, even worse night." He hung his head. "Shit. What's the matter, buddy? Is Maggie unhappy about something? If you show up smelling like that, she'll get even more pissed off." "Deal with Maggie." John looked at Bob. "You've never done that before, have you?" "You're kidding, right?" "Yes, I have. Just before you ripped my damn head off and dumped the body in the ocean," he said sarcastically. "What's the matter?" "You know I got back early. Wasn't supposed to be back until Friday, right? She was in my bed when I got here, for crying out loud." He threw his head back with a groan of pure misery. "In my bed." "Oh shit, are you sure?" Stood in the doorway in shock for a minute or two, took a look. He held out his hand, showing the abrasions where the pump teeth had cut his skin. "Beat the shit out of him." "Oh shit, someone from the law firm?" "Don't know who he is. He wasn't answering questions when I left." In a soft voice, Bob asked, "Did you destroy him?" "Unfortunately, no. He's going to come after me, that bald bastard." "It would have been better if you had destroyed him. It's a crime of passion. But now if you destroy him, It's a premeditated crime. You're finished. I know. I just can't handle this person. Hell, I loved her. Why? The anguish in his voice was painful to hear. I gave her everything she wanted. Loved her more than I thought possible. Shit, why? A lone tear rolled slowly and unhindered down his cheek. Did you ask her? No, I don't want to talk to her. You'll never get answers if you don't. I know. I don't want to know the answers. Screw this. I need to disappear for a while. You're leaving here? We've worked so hard to make this place a reality. We've been working on it since we graduated. Don't give up. I can't afford to buy you out. We'll figure something out. We have time. I'm getting on a boat this afternoon. I'll call you when I get there. John, wait. Where are you going? I won't know until I get there. I'll call you when I get there. Keep paying my paycheck, and when you think it's getting unfair, call me and we'll work something out. Cell phone will be on if I'm in range. I'll keep working on the design just from a boat or something when I get settled somewhere. I'll send you my new bank account number for direct transfer of money as soon as everything is ready. John gathered the things he thought he would need and went to his truck. After quickly stopping by the bank, opening a new account, picking up his starter checkbook and quickly writing a message to Bob, he drove it to the marina. When he got down to his berth, the dock was already humming. In the back was Grady White's small 33-foot yacht, 11 feet 6 inches wide. The cabin was small but spacious enough for him. He bought her with an upgraded 560-gallon fuel tank. The boat was fast and had seen a lot, but the two Yamaha 350 motors definitely pushed her through the water. Leaning back in his chair, he stared at the GPS screens, calculating distance, fuel consumption, provisions. A stop in Virginia Beach, another stop in Charleston, Jacksonville, Florida, Cape Canaveral, Fort Lauderdale, and on to Nassau. At a couple hundred miles a day, he should have gotten there in a week or even 2 if the weather held. There was a low coming in from the Gulf of Mexico, and if it went east, he'd have to delay a couple days, and if it went north, he'd slip past it. Planning distracted him from the pain. He just needed to get out of there as soon as possible. Fear gripped him for a moment when he thought of the possibility that he might be found before he left. No one would find him at sea for a long time. He knew the week ahead would be agonizing. The only thing to do while traveling was to think. He thought about the dangers of traveling alone, as he had on, but decided he didn't care. It wouldn't be the worst-case scenario, and maybe it would be. He just didn't care. It couldn't get any worse than it was now. As if on cue, his phone rang. He switched it to voicemail and soon heard a beep announcing he had received another message. He read the last message. You need to talk to me. Don't leave us. His anger went from relative calm when he wasn't the center of attention to rage. Don't leave us? Had she thought of that when she'd decided to sleep with Pumper? Hadn't she walked away? He pressed her number twice and the phone rang. John, where are you? Where the hell did you disappear to? I've been worried about you all night and now all day. Where are you? It doesn't matter. I want answers. John, just come home and we can talk. Please don't give up on us. Don't. You've already given up. Remember we had that event at school? Remember what we decided then? It was a mistake. I think it was you who showed your colors. I should have listened to my intuition then. Instead, I listened to my heart, and you know what? I screwed up again. And not for the better. Maggie? John was on another one of his trips. Maggie sat at her desk and looked at a picture of John in a beautiful gold frame. Tanned, in a t-shirt, holding that awful fish with the most wonderful smile on his face. Marlin. The muscles on his arms stood out, not huge, but strong, like ropes under his skin. He was always out fishing or traveling for work. She'd traveled with him a few times, but he always went to places like Mountain Home, Arkansas, Monroeville, Alabama. She went with him when he went to Mexico, thinking she would sunbathe in a hotel while he worked, but he went to some shithole in the oil fields 40 miles north of Guatemala. She was miserable the whole time, so that was the last time she traveled with him. Even then, she knew she was a bitch, grumbling while he was out in the oil fields helping to sort out equipment that did something to the drilling mud. He'd come back every day exhausted from the 100-degree heat, and she'd made him go to parties with her. He didn't want her to work, but she needed something to keep her busy. She went to law school for a couple years and got her degree, but she didn't want to study hard for the bar exam and got a job as a paralegal. Lawyers were so interesting. Their big cases, lawsuits, document after document piled on their desks. The phones were constantly ringing. The atmosphere was so energetic that it thrilled her. She had enjoyed that energy for 10 years now. She was called into the office of one of the junior partners. She was well built. She had worked hard on herself and knew how to hold her own. She knew that looks and character were the key to interesting cases and good work. Not that she did it all by herself, but there were enough hints. That she had brains was a definite advantage. Maggie, we have an interesting case that's being fast-tracked, a land deal whose use permit requires a city approval. I need someone willing to work overtime. We have to get it done in time for the City Planning Commission meeting. Are you interested? Sounds interesting. Where is it? Just outside of Washington, D.C. in Maryland. The zoning is correct, so we won't have to fight the county, just the city for a building permit. It's going to take quite a bit of time. I could use your help. Interested? Sounds like fun. She didn't realize how she'd ended up here. Some weeks she'd stayed late at the office, then they'd decided to go out for dinner. First to a deli, then to a nice restaurant, then to a club. Dancing was a fun activity, a pleasant recreation. Monday through Thursday, John was out of town again. He was due home Friday afternoon. She knew the dance wouldn't pass the test of matrimony, but Brett had her pressed against him. And it was a turn-on when she realized the man wanted her. It wouldn't hurt to give him a little push, would it? We can't do that, Brett. We're married, but not to each other. Brett, no. Please, not here. Please. John. He checked the weather. It was calm enough to get to Virginia Beach and there, away from here. Rudy's Bay wasn't so bad. If he refueled there, he could get to Charleston on the next leg and avoid Oregon Bay in North Carolina. After loading the groceries aboard after a quick trip to the grocery store and casting one last glance at his phone, he shut off the engines, pulled the ropes, and headed out of the bay. He looked back at his truck. He liked this one, and felt like he was parting with it like an old friend. It wasn't the only friendship he mourned. As he pulled out of the harbor, he added gas and gained altitude, setting the autopilot on a course for the Chesapeake. Tethering the boat to the guest dock, he pulled out his cell phone. 54 texts, 30 emails, and 5 more calls from Maggie, and he decided he had to deal with it. John, where are you? You have to listen to me. This doesn't mean anything. You're talking about our marriage, of course. It wasn't a question. No, it was just sex. It didn't mean anything. It meant you were a liar, that I couldn't trust you, and it meant our marriage was over. Is that what the connection between us meant? Nothing? When did it start? John, please come home, please? We need to talk. I'm not coming home. I'm coming to you. Where are you? Gone somewhere you won't find me. You left town? How? Where did you go? Away. You tore my heart out. I can't bear the thought of you. John's voice broke off. Ah, screw you. Don't call me. I'm dead to you. Live your life. I'm leaving. John, please, please talk to me. Please don't go. God, please. Bye, Maggie. Have a happy life. Maggie. Let's go where we're more comfortable, baby. John's gone and Barb's not expecting me. Let's leave. You know we've been coming to this for a long time. Maggie was stunned, but stood up as he pulled her along and followed him to the car. During the short drive to the house she shared with John, she reached into her bag and checked her phone. It had been ringing while she was dancing. It wasn't the first time this had happened, but this time she felt fear. An anxiety rose in her that she had never felt before, and she began to doubt again. She began to get angry. What was he waiting for? He's on the road all the time, going fishing when it's in season at home. Well, the hell with it. He'll never know. I'll do it once and put it out of my mind. I'll throw it all away in one night and never again. John will never know. As soon as she put the key in the door, she went straight upstairs to her bedroom. She woke up at 11 o'clock. Brett, no, we can't do this. It will never happen again. Come on, Maggie. It's not like you can say you didn't like it. Shut up, Brett. It's not going to happen again. Maggie, now that I have it, and don't forget you gave it away willingly, I don't know how I can work with you if I never get it again. You do realize how this will affect your work, right? If I let the partners know I can't work with you. Brett, what would it take to do that? Am I really going to get into this forever? First of all, I'll walk away. I don't love you. I love my husband. He would destroy me and you if he found out. Please don't take my husband away from me. Please. Now she was openly crying. I'll tell you what. One more trip, then I'll go back to the office and think it over. If I decide I need it, I'll let you know. We'll see how it goes. You goddamn bastard. John. What the hell had I done? Why wasn't I good enough? I loved her so much I'd do anything for her. What does he have that I don't? Low water had passed through the south and was due to hit the coastal waters tonight. He decided it was better to lay low than risk something going wrong and having to wait out the storm in a dead boat with 7-foot seas and other unpleasantness. He jumped off the boat and went to the provision store where he bought a folding chair with a cushion. It had Marlin embossed on the back, and he set it up in the cockpit, sat down, and watched the people passing by. Some smiled at him, others just walked by, and some half-jokingly said hello to him. He couldn't get the image of the pumper out of his head. The story of his and Maggie's affair, the movie he didn't want to see but started anyway. Image after image flashed before his eyes like lines of a song where you only remember 2 or 3 lines, but they play over and over in your head, threatening to rip his heart out again. He remembered the first time he saw her laughing in the student center. There was a small bar with food, and she was sitting at a few tables. She was so full of life, almost too thin, in a tank top and jeans. The recessed light fixture above her table reflected the light on her hair, so shiny, so silky, that it caught his attention. Her hair seemed like a hologram, changing with the light falling on it from different angles. Beautiful white teeth, crooked enough to know that God had blessed her with them, and that they hadn't come from the dentist's office. Her blue eyes stopped on him, light blue, ice blue, and John felt a chill as they briefly glanced at him. Her smile faded as she looked up at him, then grew again as she waved her hand at him. He smiled, nodded, blushed, and looked away. He started to gather his things. No way, John, she's no match for you, John thought to himself. He had to walk past her to get out. He looked at her, and she looked at him. Hi. Hi. Sweet and radiant. She's so damn cute and he's so not shiny. Hell, not brilliant, but not creepy either. I hope she remembers me in an hour. That must happen to her a lot. He knew he'd remember her for a long time. A few nights later, he was standing at the door of the frat house, people coming in and out, the keg full to the brim. Hey, I saw you at the Gull's Nest the other day, right? He turned and looked and realized it was her. Yeah, I think so. Why didn't you say hello? Yeah, I said hi. Damn, that sucked, he thought. But you didn't stay and talk to me. Why? I don't know you. I've never seen you before. I didn't think you would be interested. He didn't want to blush. He knew she could see that. You don't talk much, do you? Not really. You know, you're making it difficult. You're very direct, you know, he said, smiling. I know, it's an art. She threw her hair back with her hand, posing with her leg bent and laughing. John fell in love with that laugh again and decided he would do almost anything to hear it again. She's out of my league. It's stupid. If I don't leave right now, I'll get my heart broken. Well, I should probably get going. I have a test tomorrow and I need to study for a couple more hours. Wait, what are you studying? Engineering. I have a thermodynamics test tomorrow. I don't even know what thermodynamics is. I like engineering because it has rules, and rules can lead you to all sorts of things. You just have to be creative and maybe apply them a little differently than others to get things done. I try to apply rules and trends to life in general. It helps me understand things. I'm not quite sure what you're getting at. She smiled, looking at him expectantly. Here's the thing. If I look at you from across the room in the middle of the day like that time, you'll have at least a 9. If you're smiling, you'll have a 9.5 comma. And if you're laughing, you'll have a solid 10. Mine is a 5, maybe a 6 on a good day. She laughed. The only dating rule I've been able to derive is to never date someone who is 1 or 2 levels above you. If the gap is bigger, the one below suffers. And I'm just one of those people. Come on, you don't really believe that, do you? Absolutely. Take us, for example. I worship the ground you walk on, and I'm convinced that the only reason you don't walk on water is because you didn't want to get your shoes wet. You'll find that I'm obsessed with something like school or projects I'm working on. It's not up to me. It's just who I am. I know that. He smiled at her and she found his smile cute, almost boyish, like he had a secret that only he knew. I'm also absent-minded and rather sloppy. No, not really. I just have a very high tolerance for mess. He smiled again, blocking out the noise of the party. You'd start smiling less and not laughing at all. Then some great guy would find you, and you'd think about the fact that maybe you deserved better. Every time you'd look at me, you'd be convinced you could be better, and it wouldn't be smug. He smiled at her, and she raised wide, icy blue eyes to him. Don't look at me like that, it's distracting. She laughed again. Self-confidence is defined as confidence that outweighs skill. But you definitely have what it takes to do it better than I do. So it's definitely not self-confidence, but as long as you keep going, you've distracted me again. For days, weeks, or maybe even years, this story will develop. You will end up disliking me, perhaps even hating me, and I will leave with a broken heart. Perhaps we should just skip to the end. It's a lot less painful. You're crazy. You know that, don't you? She said, laughing. Well, in my mind, I just had a relationship with a beautiful woman. And we got through it, and you never once scolded me, and we parted as friends. Anyway, have a good day. Have a happy life. He pushed off the door jamb and turned to leave. Leaning over, he whispered in her ear, "Goodbye, my love," and walked away. She stood, stunned, frozen, and watched him make his way through the crowd and out of the building into the darkness. Coming out of her trance, she tried, but couldn't make it through the crowd fast enough to catch up with him. When she popped out the door and looked both ways, he was nowhere to be seen. 2 days later, he was sitting in the student center reading a textbook, and she, a simpering blonde, walked up to him. "Hi, Mindy, this is my ex. We were very happily married for a while, and then he lost his confidence and left." "Hi, ex. Hi, Mindy. He doesn't even know your name since you weren't married." Mindy said this with a look like she understood the joke but wasn't sure about it. "Well, we could very well be. What's your name? If I'm going to pine for a lost love, I should at least know your name." "John." "Maggie." She reached out and shook John's hand, contradictorily, firmly, but as tenderly as John had never felt. They started talking, and when they looked up, it was already dark and the student center was sparsely populated. Mindy had gone somewhere. Neither of them noticed it. "Thanks for spending time with me, Maggie. Have a good weekend. I'll be looking for you around." "John, you know, if you asked me out on a date or something, I'd probably say yes." "Maggie, your 10 against my 5 just won't work." "John, you know that ratings aren't just based on looks. Is that really the only thing you're interested in about me? And by the way, you're definitely above an A in looks." "No, I'm not, but now that I know how smart and human and sweet you are, a 10 just doesn't fit." "Yes, but now that I know you and how nice you are, you're much closer to a 10 than a 5 in my eyes. Don't sell yourself and don't decide for me. You're tall, you have muscles but not too much. You have a pretty face, brown eyes, brown hair, some stubble. What else don't you like about me? Why do I scare you so much, Mr. Man who doesn't know it?" "Ha! Catching compliments? Let me see." He looked up at her and she marveled at his brown eyes, which gave them a personality unlike any other eyes she'd seen before. "Okay, how about this? When you laugh, it makes my heart feel lighter. When you smile, it makes my knees weak. When you talk about ethical theory in business, which is probably the most boring subject I can imagine, it takes my breath away. I cling to every word. I have never interacted with anyone who grabs my attention as much as you do. I love it when you laugh. I'm willing to hang upside down on a lower tree branch and make monkey noises if I think it makes you laugh." She laughed, and he smiled a soft and thoughtful smile. "You don't talk about your problems, you think about others, and I find that almost irresistible. What scares me is that I know that at some point in the future, you will break my heart, and it will be my fault. I will do something to make you angry or not do something I should have done. When you tell me goodbye, I will love you so much that I can't imagine the pain. I don't know if I'm willing to take that risk." "Wait, did you just say you love me?" "Yes, now, I have to go. I'll see you later." "John, wait," she exclaimed as he crossed the room and headed for the door. "Please don't make me beg. I'll beg if I have to, but please don't do this to me. Just meet me tomorrow for dinner wherever you want. I agree, please." He hesitated for a moment, then shook his head, as if he was about to do something he knew he shouldn't. "I have an exam Thursday morning. How about Thursday night?" "I can't Thursday, but Friday is okay." "Sure, meet me here at 6. "Please." She rose on her toes, kissed him briefly on the lips and ran off, her hair bouncing from side to side. He stood with his hand to his lips and watched out the window as she ran across the playground toward the dorm. When he looked at the guy sitting at the table next to him, he laughed softly. "You're done, kid. Just give up. She won." He leaned back in his folding chair. The rain wouldn't stop. It was cold. He got up from the chair, walked across the helm and down the 3 steps leading to the cabin. He crawled under the stairs to the double bunk, and tears mixed with the rain streamed down his face. He missed her so much, but she was gone. It was so painful, he would never make a mistake like that again. John woke up to sunlight streaming in through the hatch above his desk. He made himself some scrambled eggs and sat down at the small table to eat. He used to love sitting here with Maggie, and then he started to remember how much it hurt. Damn, bitch. He looked at his phone and realized he had to call the boys. He had a message from each of them. He really wished they weren't involved in all of this. He had 2 sons, Jimmy and Sid. Jimmy had just graduated from college and was working part-time as an intern for financial companies over the summer. John didn't really know what he was doing, but he knew he was trying hard. The guy called the day after he graduated from college and said he didn't need the monthly payments anymore. He wanted to stand on his own 2 feet. Sid was a scholar and was going to be in school for many more years. He was working on his doctorate. I think he had enough for another 3 years or so. He made arrangements with the company he worked for to pay his salary, tuition, and books. He had to work there for another 3 years after graduation, but financially he was financially secure with just about everything and earned a great salary. He loved the sea, like John, and enrolled in the ocean engineering department. John always teased him about spending so much time learning that shit rusts in salt water. The thought of that brought the first glimmer of a smile to his face in days. "Hey, Sid, I saw you called." "Hey, Pops, where the hell have you been?" "I decided to take a vacation. I'm going to travel." "Mom's going crazy, Dad. What the hell happened?" "You don't need to know, buddy. Just know things are bad and I need to get away for a while." "Mom wants to know where you are." "Yeah, and I know you'll tell her if I tell you, so I won't tell you. Please just stay out of it. I'll be in touch." "Dad, what the hell did you do?" "Didn't do anything. Just know that I'm out of town and I'll be in touch as soon as I get where I'm going. If you need anything your mother won't give you, call me. I'll be in touch for a few days, so leave a message if I don't answer." "You're on a ship, aren't you? Did you sail north or south?" "Yes, I was sailing north or south. I have to run. I'll call you." "Love you, Daddy." "Love you too, Sid." Jimmy's call was predictable. "Dad, where the hell are you? What have you done? Mom is hysterical, crying all the time and doesn't know where you are. She's been calling me once an hour since yesterday asking if I've heard from you." "What have you done?" "I haven't done anything." "Dad, go home. You're acting like a child." "Jim, I want to tell you not to get involved. Not to take sides until you know the whole story. I'm going away for a while. I'll call you from time to time. If you can't tell me what you did, then stay out of it." The tone of voice brought John out of his reverie. The anger that had always been under the floor ever since he'd seen Pumper siphon off the money burst to the surface. "I'll say it again, Jimmy. Don't take sides until you understand what this is all about. When you understand, then take sides, and the dust will settle wherever it wants to. Mom said you're traveling, and she thinks you have a girlfriend. I'm traveling for work so she can have the clothes she wants, the house she wants, the damn car. And no, I don't have a girlfriend, never have, not once, never. Don't do this, Jimmy. Don't call me Jimmy, my name is Jim. You're acting like Jimmy. Tell you what, let's not do this anytime soon. I gotta run." Damn. He'd always had a good relationship with both boys, but Jim was a mama's boy, always had been. But he was also the athlete in the family. Surfed, soccer, hockey, never did anything half-assed. John was the chauffeur at away hockey games. He was the one who drove Jimmy to North Carolina when the Mid-Atlantic was too cold for surfing. Coached the soccer team since Jimmy was Jimmy. He was a mama's boy, but he had a good relationship with John, or at least John thought so. Things seemed to be changing. He knew that Sid would be patient and calculating, but Jimmy he'd be quick to switch sides. Another weather check between Virginia Beach and Wilmington, North Carolina, told him that today would be a good day to sail. He had 3 days of calm seas before the next system would start gaining on him. In 3 days, he should reach St. Augustine. Then he would rest for a couple days and head for Palm Beach. It was going to be a long trip. He strung the fishing line, followed the channel across the bay, and was out on the open sea again. South, Definitely south. As soon as he was on the open sea and turned on the autopilot, the movie spun in his head again. She says you're the best thing in her life. He squatted against a low concrete wall in the square. She'd called and said she needed to talk to him, that it was important. He decided he had nothing to lose. Becky, we haven't had anything. We only had dinner twice, went to the movies once, a picnic by the river and a barbecue. And that's it. We kissed a couple times, but nothing more than that. John had met Becky at a barbecue. She was another perky blonde, Maggie's sorority sister. Maggie had given her her phone number, of that John was sure. I know, but she still says it was the best night of her life. She's definitely right for you, you know. All you have to do is make a move. Are you kidding me? She's the one who made you call me? Are we still in high school? You're going to make the next call to her and then call me again to tell me what she said, etc., etc., etc. I'm not going to play that game. John, she needs more than Saturdays with you every now and then. Becky, last question, why me? I see guys running after her all the time, why me? John, you're good-looking, well-built, funny, smart, and if I can tell from her descriptions of your kisses that you know how to kiss, you should open a kissing booth, charging $1 a kiss. You'd be rich. John laughed. I'll call her, we can talk, but I can't just hook up. It has to be a relationship for me. I don't know why. Maybe my feminine side comes out. Becky laughed. Please, John, call her. She's moping because she hasn't heard from you in a couple weeks. Do you think she knows the telephone is a two-way communication device? She could have called me. Becky threw John a glare. I'll call her. John met Maggie at the door of the sorority house. She was sitting on the stairs waiting for him as he approached. Hi, Maggie. Hi, Becky. How are you doing? Hi, John. She turned to Maggie and ran the brush over her shoulder as if removing lint. Don't be late, dear. I'll be waiting for you upstairs. She laughed and ran up the stairs to the big house. John, can we talk? Sure, here? No, too many eyes and ears if you know what I mean. Let's take a walk. As they walked across the field separating the fraternity and sorority houses and sat down on a bench, Maggie began, John, do you like me? Do you find me beautiful? I thought we found that out during our first conversation, Maggie. Do you want me? Of course, every guy who's ever seen you wants you. Then I want you too. What's the problem? What am I not seeing? John sat in silence as a dark blue Porsche drove by. A young swarthy guy leaned out the window and shouted after them. Honey, baby, come on, baby. Let's go for a ride. John smiled and she gave the guy the finger. That's the problem, Maggie. Every guy who's ever looked at you wants you. Sooner or later, I'm not going to hold back. I'm old-fashioned. I'm not just dating. I want a relationship that will lead to something. I just don't see how we can handle the pressure of your looks. I want exclusivity. It's just something I need. I don't compete in matters of the heart. It's either right or wrong. It's not a competition. I've seen you on campus with others, flirting with others. I can't stand it. It's just not right for me. John, I'm not interested in anyone else. When I went into Bogart's for a drink with the guys on Wednesday last week, it didn't seem that way to me. I don't know the guy's name, but I know his type. You looked pretty cute holding hands on the table. John, he doesn't mean anything to me. It was just a date between friends. We're not in a relationship. Why didn't you warn me of your presence? Well, then he's not right for me. John, if you want an exclusive relationship, I can do that. You can? What happens when I have an article to write, when I'm working on a project? Or worse, when I have to leave for work? Will you be able to just wait for me? Will you miss the big party, the event of the season? John, you're the only one I need. I'll break up with the other guys, I can wait for you. They're just friends anyway, not like you. Maggie, you should know that I'm not very good at sharing with others. I'm not jealous, I'm not watching your every move, but it only takes one time. Once the trust is gone, it's gone, and there's no getting it back, ever. John, I understand I will never lose your trust, I promise. So we have an official relationship? John blushed. Maggie found that so sweet. Yes, John, thank you. They walked around campus for a few hours, eating lunch in the student center. When they left the house and went to cross the road, Maggie twisted her ankle in a pothole and would have fallen if John hadn't picked her up. Damn, that hurts. John gently set her on the ground and carefully pulled the tennis shoe off her foot. She didn't look injured, but what could John know? It's not swollen. Can you put some weight on it? Let's get you to the trauma center. It's right next to my apartment, not far from here. John picked her up in his arms, put his arms around her neck and carried her. A couple hours later, after claiming a mild sprain and advising her to stay as far away as possible, they went outside. She staggered a bit, and John carried her to his adjoining apartment. He carried her up the stairs, putting her down only to put the key in the lock. He laid her down on the bed. Shit, John thought, coming back to the present moment as the boat bounced on the waves of the intensifying sea. He looked at his GPS and saw that he was almost east of the bay. He slowed down a little and turned west toward the bay. His eyes struggled to focus through tears. A horrible thought came into his head. I wonder if this happened to her the first time she was with Pumper. The pain was almost physical, and anger flared up with renewed vigor. After refueling the boat, he pulled into the parking lot he'd rented for the night, went downstairs and got a folding chair. He sat down on the deck, placing the bottle of whiskey at his feet. A good drinking session was as good as it got. The next day, John was too green to take a trip, so he just lay on the yacht. His phone kept vibrating, but he didn't touch it until it had traveled across the table to the edge. Each time it vibrated a little harder, and the next ring invariably sent it to the floor. It was surprisingly fascinating, like watching an ant walking down the sidewalk. Hello? John, where are you? Why don't you want to come home so we can talk? She just rushed into the argument, without even saying hello. It's not my house anymore, I don't live there anymore, and I'm not coming to your house. John, please. Don't do this, please. It's not. Don't say that, Maggie, it didn't mean anything. It was just one time, I didn't mean it. It just happened. It was just one time, it was just one night, all the other nonsense excuses and reasons. I hate being a cliché. Don't lie to me anymore. I'm only going to ask one question, and then I'll walk off into the sunset, and you'll never hear from me again. Why? John, please. I love you. Please, can we forget about this? Maggie, remember when we first started dating? You had that date. You told me you were breaking things off with Tim and you needed to see him again. That's not what I saw then, that's not how I feel now. That was bad, but this is worse. You violated our trust, or at least my trust in you. I gave you a second try and it took you a while, but you blew it. Now answer my question before I hang up for the last time. Why? John, it wasn't what you think. It was a mistake. That's the first truth you've told me. It was definitely a mistake. It ended our relationship, our marriage, the happy home, our children, remember. John's anger continued to build at the same rate as the discomfort in his stomach. Didn't I always give you everything you wanted? A house in the country, a car, clothes, jewelry. I thought our life was pretty good. You never complained. And now I find out it wasn't good enough. He heard sobs in the receiver and continued. It's not you, John, it's me. Screw you. Why? Maggie, just answer me this question. Why? If it's not about me, then why? John, just come home. Tell me where you are and I'll come to you, please. Can we just sit and talk? No, I need to know why. I don't know, John, it just happened. If we can't find out why, how can we avoid it in the future? I'm done. Finished. Goodbye, Maggie. Please understand that this is goodbye, not goodbye. Not goodbye to seeing you or talking to you. It's just goodbye. No, John. He heard, looking at the phone to press the end button. Not anguish, not anger, just... He would never forget those agonizing days, the first few days of their relationship. He should have seen it coming. She'd told him she was breaking up with others. God, how many had there been? The movie flashed through his mind again. Him sitting in the sun, a glass of water in the cup holder beside him. First, he heard her laugh. She was standing next to Tim, head thrown back and laughing, holding onto his hand. Her beautiful smile, he didn't expect he would never share it with anyone else. But the way she looked at the guy told him it wasn't an empty relationship like she said about the others. John had a choice, stay in the shadows or make himself known. Not knowing how to be shy, he stepped out of the shade of the tree he was standing under. Hi, Maggie. The look on her face told him all he needed to know. They promised to be exclusive. She had confessed her love to him over 2 weeks ago. This didn't seem exclusive. John, this is Tim. Nice to meet you. Tim extended his hand. John didn't reciprocate. He almost felt sorry for Tim. He obviously didn't know anything. I'm sure. It was good to see you, Maggie. John turned and walked away. He wanted to punch and hurt, but he couldn't do it. John, wait. Sorry, I don't have time. Maggie stood in indecision. She was going to break up with Tim, but she hadn't decided yet. She could feel her face pale, and fear stirred in her stomach. Honestly, she was going to break up with Tim, who stood looking back and forth at her and John as he rounded the corner of the building and out of sight, and she realized that she was the one he was trying to convince. "Who was that?" Tim asked, uncertainty written all over his face. "It was John. That's what I wanted to talk to you about." "What do you mean you wanted to talk?" "He's my boyfriend, I guess." "Then why are you here with me?" "I wanted to tell you everything in private. Maybe over dinner." "I don't blame him for being mad. Bye, Maggie." "Tim, wait." John went to the library and tried very hard to study, but nothing was working. He knew it was useless, but he tried anyway. Finally, he gave up and went home. "Hey, you're here. That girl you were talking about is trying to reach you. She's calling about every 20 minutes. The phone rang as if on demand. "I don't want to talk." "What should I tell her?" "Tell her I'm not here and to stop bothering you." "What did she do, run over your dog? That's a cruel person." "Hello?" A brief hesitation. "No, he's not here. I was told not to expect him today." "I don't know where he is. I just know he's not here." John heard her reply from across the room. "Shit." Ray hung up the phone and smiled at John. "Let's go get a drink. Tell old Ray all about it. I'm buying the first 3 rounds. You're on your own from here." Ray pulled John into his bed late at night. He'd heard enough about St. Maggie's for one night. As soon as John got his strength up, he started talking about how he'd met her, how he'd spent time with her, how he'd gone to the movies, what he liked about her. Pretty much everything. And then he started whining until his speech became slurred, and his mind stopped thinking. Ray was glad he'd finally calmed down. It couldn't cure everything, but sometimes a good drink could cure a lot of things. John left the university after his exams. He spent the week at home with his mom and dad. It was his father who got him into yachting. Dad was into sailing and had a great 32-foot Nicholson yacht. John fell in love with the sea, the wildlife cruising after dark, the light trails of dolphins chasing the yacht at night. He fell in love with the night sky off the coast, where the stars were so bright. He lay on his back and just watched the stars move across the sky. He wished he could share it with Maggie. Maggie was waiting for him when they pulled up to the yacht. "How did you find me? I didn't want you to." "I went looking for you, and when Ray tried to explain to me that you were gone, I saw an envelope on the table addressed to you. I went to your house, but only your mom was home. We spent the whole day together. I told her what happened. Finally, she said you would be back on shore today, so I went to the nearest wharf and waited. She didn't tell me where to find you. I got here at 7 o'clock in the morning, but I was so afraid I had missed you. She told me not to expect a warm welcome. She said you don't open often, but she knew something was bothering you. It's not like you to drop out of school like that." "She was right. I don't want you here." "Why not, John? I told you I was backing out and I told you it would take some time." "Did you sleep with him?" "Why are you asking me that?" "No, I didn't sleep with him, John. Well, not this time. I'm not a virgin and you know it. We said we were in an exclusive relationship and that's the way it is, since we agreed to keep everyone else out of it." "Tim doesn't seem to understand that." "He left me in the restroom. I never saw him again and I never will, John. He seemed like a smart guy. John, you're all I need, please." He was about to leave. "I didn't expect to see you with him. It hit me hard. I'm not competing for you, Maggie. It either works or it doesn't. You either love me or you don't. If you love me, you don't want to be with anyone else. If I ever find out you're with another guy, it means you don't love me, and that will be the last time you see me. Period. Look, I came here to let you know that I'm serious about our promise to be exclusive. It meant nothing to me. I understand how it looked to you, and I'm sorry. It will never happen again. Can we go back to the way things were before? Please don't walk away from me, from this. Please? Maggie, if you were honest with me, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't like you dating another guy, but I'd probably be okay with it. Not knowing and tripping over you? It seemed like you were hiding something, that you weren't being honest. I won't put up with it. I just won't." He shook his head and lowered his gaze. For the next few moments, he mentally went through the list. Would life be better with or without her? For a few weeks, there was a coldness between them, but Maggie kept pushing for what she wanted, and eventually John thawed. Their relationship began to grow and grow stronger. The ice in the glass had long since melted, and John took a sip of warm water. Damn it. Why didn't I get the hint? Had she been seeing guys on the side all this time? How long has she been having fun with him? Has this marriage for the past 30 years been a farce? Is there even anything real? John wondered. He stood up and got ready to go to sea again. Cleaning up, buying supplies, sleeping that night was difficult, and questions kept running through his mind. The next morning he was on his way. To Georgia, then to Florida, and finally out to sea, to Nassau. Maggie. Oh shit, what am I going to do? Maggie wailed, turning to Becky. I lost him. I lost everything. Becky didn't give up. Maggie, why did you do it? What the hell were you thinking? You gave up a 30-year relationship for a shitty idiot. How are you going to explain that to the boys? I'm not going to explain that to the boys. Oh my God, how can I? That triggered another bout of tears. She covered her face with her hands, tears streaming down her cheeks. Have you talked to them? No, not really. Not since I told them he left. I keep calling them to see if he called them. He only called Jimmy once, and Sid hasn't said a word. So according to them, John just left you. For no reason. He just left. And you don't think they'll wonder if John did something wrong? Are you just going to let them think what they think? Are you willing to take the risk that it will damage their relationship with John and do nothing to prevent it? You don't deserve him. You know that, don't you? I was so good I just stumbled, you know? You make it sound like you slipped on a banana peel and landed on him. You slept with him all night, in John's bed. What the hell were you thinking? Damn girl. Do you think John will ever forget walking in and seeing that? Maggie looked at her and her eyes reflected understanding. If you were having fun with him in the car and driving home alone and John somehow found out about it, maybe, although I doubt it was from John, but maybe. But no, you brought a guy into John's bed and he found you the next day. How can you explain that? You broke the nicest guy I've ever met. He was a coach, gave everything to you and the guys, worked his ass off. Do you have any idea how many women threw themselves at him? I saw it happen. He was always polite, always soft, but always decisive. No meant no, he wasn't interested. Period. And you rejected that. I have to do something, Becky. I have to let him know I love him. You can try, but I'm not relying on you. If you can get him to talk to you, if you can beg, crawl to him, be the most wonderful wife in history, and never even think about lying to him again. It will kill him in a heartbeat. You will also have to deal with the boys. If they accuse their father, it will all be over. You realize that, don't you? Oh God, I've messed up everything. He has to talk to me. Has to. John. John was sitting on the cockpit floor in the back of the plane, a pump in his hand. He was dressed in his uniform, shorts and a tattered t-shirt. He always wore a fish shirt. His tan had darkened over the last week in port. The Caribbean sun was scorching mercilessly. Hi, I'm Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Without looking up, he noticed there was a locking ring on the case. If I turn it this way, it might come off. Then I can unlock it, John thought to himself. What are you doing? Fixing the pump. Why? It's not pumping. Yeah, but where is it pumping to? What is it doing? It's pumping water into the well. Okay, now I realize I know less than I thought I did. The sarcasm made John look up. Long blonde hair, slim but not lean figure, the sun falling on her back. John couldn't see her eyes, but he could see her smile. He instinctively smiled back. There's a tank that holds the bait fish, and this pump feeds water into it, takes water from the ocean and feeds it into the tank. The water then overflows into a drain that goes back into the ocean. This way the water stays fresh, doesn't overheat, and is oxygenated. The bait remains alive, hence the name Living Well. It was the longest conversation in the last 3 weeks he's been involved in. It was enjoyable. What was enjoyable, Sarah? You explained it like everyone would want to know, not like I was stupid, even though I looked stupid asking the question. Thank you. You're welcome. You don't talk much, do you? Not usually. Can I come aboard and take a look? Sarah, can I help you with something? I'm just trying to figure out how to fix my pump. I wanted to go fishing this morning. I'm sorry if you don't want to be disturbed. My mom and dad thought it would be good for me to swim here, but they're just reminding me of bad things. Things I don't want to think about. John looked at her again, and she tensed, apologizing. He saw resentment flash across her face, but it disappeared after a second. If you want company, I'm not sure I'm the right person for it. I try not to think about bad things. Are you here alone? Where's the wife and kids? John shuddered. He didn't feel like lying to her for some reason. The ex stayed home, the kids are grown and separate. You came here alone? On this boat? Yes, I need to buy a new pump. If you want, you can come back later. Can I come with you? Where can I buy such a pump? Sure, if you want, but I need to stop by the provision store at the marina office. Will you wait for me? I need to tell my mom where I'm going. Sure. John watched her run down the dock, up the decking to the 60-foot sailboat standing in several bays. To his eye, she looked to be in her early 20s, maybe a little older. A man looked out from a cabin on the dock, and John timidly waved at him. He didn't wave back. When he could see her face without the backlight of the sun, he figured she was in her 30s. Small crow's feet at the corners of her eyes, creases at the corners of her mouth. Are your parents okay with you coming with me? Yeah, they're just overprotective of me. I wasn't having the best of times before we came here. I'm sorry. They walked in silence down the pier, the steel drum music growing louder as they approached the marina office. There was a tiki bar with a sandy floor. A few people were sitting behind the bar watching the steel band play. John asked Sarah, "Would you like a drink?" That would be nice. Are you sure you don't mind? Do you have time? Yeah, I haven't talked to anyone for a couple weeks now. It's just me and Down Deep. I've been stuck on this damn ship with Mom and Dad for a couple centuries. Not exactly what I need right now. What do you need right now? A glass of white wine. John smiled at her. They sat at a table away from the bar and the bustle of the steel band. The afternoon breeze was just beginning to pick up, dispelling the stifling summer heat. So, John, how long have you been here? What's your story? Let's figure out why they are, to quote you. Couple of the century, and why that pisses you off. I was going through a hard divorce and my parents decided I needed to get away. They decided we'd come here, rent a boat, and get away from our problems. She laughed, musical, melodic, and sad at the same time. Her teeth were dazzling white and her eyes were a soft green. What's wrong with that? They seem to care about you. A bad divorce and I'm stuck on a ship with two people who've been in love with each other since they were 18. It just reminds me of something I'll never have. I love them, you know. Very, very much. I just wish Daddy could sail or hire a captain who could. I don't know what to wish for. I thought I had it all. I had a good job. I thought I had a good marriage for 20 years. I had a house with a white picket fence, a kid in college who was doing well, and one night it all came crashing down. It was all over in one night. A tear rolled down her cheek. I'm sorry I blamed it all on you, John. I'm sorry, I have to go. Sarah, please don't go. I understand you more than you can imagine. There's no way she's old enough for all this to have happened. It just can't be, John thought. I've been alive for almost 30 years and it all came crashing down in 15 minutes. It was during the day, not at night, but the result was the same. I left and never came back. Oh, John, I'm so sorry. Are you divorced now too? No, didn't go through that process. Have you talked to her? What happened when it happened? I talked to her a few times on the way here. Just short conversations, more questions from me than anything else. Not a lot of answers. Let's see, it took a week and a half to get here, and I've been here almost a week. Sarah leaned back in her chair and looked at John with an expression of sadness. It was the most caring look John had seen in months. So fresh, John. Do you want to talk about it? Maybe someday, but not now. When are you coming home? We have 2 weeks left on the boat, but we might come back sooner. Dad tried to steer the boat, but it was a lot harder than he remembered, and Mom and I don't know anything. There's nothing we can do to help. Your dad must be out of his mind. John looked at his phone. 23 unread messages. He opened the marine weather app. There's going to be a lot of wind tomorrow, but the next day seems fine. Maybe we can take the boat out for the day. Do you think your dad will let me help him run the boat? I don't know. I wouldn't want to hurt his feelings, but maybe. Don't tell me you know how to sail. Yeah, my dad had a 30-foot sailboat when I was younger. We did a lot of sailing. It wasn't as big as your boat, but I can't imagine the principles are much different. Will you have lunch with us tomorrow? Can you give this to Papa? I know it would make a huge difference to him. Sarah leaned back in her chair, her gaze intense. She looked so excited and at the same time afraid that it wasn't true, that it wouldn't work out. I think we can work something out. Let's meet back here tomorrow at noon. Oh, John, I'm so sorry. I understand what you're going through, and here I am asking you to help my family. It's not fair. It's okay, Sarah. I don't mind, really. The next day at noon, John walked up the gangway to the dock and saw Sarah waving to him as he approached the bar. He reached out and shook the older man's hand. Sir, John Baker, nice to meet you. Ben Livingston. The smile never left his eyes, and he looked at John incredulously. I take it you swim? Yes, sir, John replied, taking a seat in the vacant chair across from Ben. When I was younger, my father had a 32-foot Nicholson yacht. Instead of baseball and camping in the summer, we went sailing. He sold the yacht a couple of years ago when he couldn't run it on his own anymore. John, this is my mom, Beth Livingston. Beth was a more grown-up version of Sarah, still just as beautiful, with the same smile. Hi, John, thank you for meeting us today. Sarah told us that you know how to sail, and Ben was looking forward to the boat trip tomorrow. We don't want to upset you, but it would be a big favor for us. Ben and Beth questioned him with practiced skill. Ben asked technical questions and Beth tossed in challenging questions as the conversation progressed. Back at Deep, John realized that they knew a lot more about him than he was willing to share. The three of them knew that he'd caught his wife cheating, that it was still too fresh to know what he was going to do, about the origins of his boys, about the fact that he was hiding from everything here, with no schedule. They knew he was an engineer who had been out of touch with his office for almost 3 weeks, and that he was almost ready to face the world again. The schedule for tomorrow was set. John lay on the bow of the boat on the sack sails and watched the unruffled water rushing toward him. A light breeze was blowing, just enough to keep things moving on the shallow ocean waves. Sarah settled down beside him, also lying on her back and looking up at the sky. Penny for your thoughts, John. They're probably not worth a penny. In fact, I'll probably have to pay you. You know, you've made Father happier than I could have imagined even a day ago. He's better off than he thinks he is. I didn't do much, but I gave him the confidence to make decisions. He's fine. John, what are you going to do? Now I'm going to have to pay you. That's exactly what I was thinking. Looks like my break in business is coming to an end. I'll have to contact the office. I'm sure I'll have some business to attend to. I'll have to clear things up with my kids, and I'll have to get in touch with her and start sharing information. Stand by, shouted Ben from the helm. He's in his glory, isn't he? Sarah said as John began to rise with a rare smile on his face. Good to see. Look at the way your mom is looking at him, like he's going to give milk or something. A cloud flashed in John's eyes. I thought I had this. Shit. Sorry. John let go of the left rope as the sail began to rock on the turn, and pulled up the starboard slack as the boat began to lurch on the turn. He adjusted the Genoa, making sure the light breeze was giving maximum thrust and the mainsail was learning not to flutter. Looking up, he made sure they were heading for the harbor on the leeward side, and realized that the day of relaxed sailing would soon be over. He leaned back on the sacks of sails. I'm not looking forward to it. I know how you feel. I went through this about a year ago, John. No matter what happens, I'd like to keep in touch with you. She didn't think John could hear her heart pounding, but he did. I know it's not the time and it's not what you think, but in just a couple short days you've reminded me that there are decent people around. She blushed, raised her eyes to his, and just as quickly averted them when he caught her gaze. Decent men. Sarah, if only we'd met at a different time. Later, after lowering the sails, John put the yacht in position. Making sure the ropes were properly tied down, he reached down and turned off the diesel engine. That was fun, Ben. Thanks for a great day. Brought back a lot of good memories. Thanks, son. Would you mind another day this week? Ben smiled hopefully at John, his silver hair ruffled by the breeze and red sunspots showing through on his cheeks. He had the expression of a genuinely happy man. I'd love to, but I'll have to adjust my schedule. Can I call you back? Sure. Just let us know when you'd like to go out. I know Sarah will love it. I'll love it too, sir. Did you get everything cleaned up and washed, or do you need help washing the boat? I think the women are already working on that, but thank you. Ben smiled and gestured for Sarah and Beth to wash the deck with soapy water. I'll be off then. Have a nice evening. John slid off the side onto the dock, smiling. I'm off. I feel like a World War II British captain. Where did that come from? He thought, pacing back to the down deep. Crawling onto the boat reminded him of his loneliness. He felt even more alone than he had the day before. Maybe he was starting to feel again. Maybe that was a good thing. Maybe not. Anger swept over him again, and for the first time in a long time, he picked up his phone and turned it on. Voicemails and texts weren't a priority for him, and he dialed Bob's number. Holy shit, you're alive, John. I was getting worried. Where the hell are you? I'm in Nassau. No shit, really? How are you, buddy? You okay? I'm still pretty pissed off, Bob. I know I have a job to do, even while I'm here licking my wounds. Yeah, John, we've got a problem with Alexander's account. They have a valve and elbow that keeps failing. They want a new design to fix it. Can we move the valve or eliminate the elbow or something? Hell, do you have time to come up with that? Email me the plans, Bob, and I'll take a look. I'll send you something by the end of the day tomorrow. If you do, I won't be so worried about your direct deposit tomorrow. Yeah, about my direct deposit. Wait a day or two. I need to get things sorted out, get my investments in order. Speaking of which, she calls every day asking if I've heard from you. Can I tell her we talked? If you don't tell her where I am, you can tell her we talked. If you talk to her, tell her I won't talk to her again until she tells me the reason. I've already told her that, but I don't think it will hurt her to hear it again in a different voice. John, how do I get in touch with you? I've called your cell phone many times with questions, but I keep getting to voicemail. I haven't turned it on. I'll call you every day at 3 o'clock unless I'm away fishing. If I'm gone, I'll call you when I get back. John and Bob spent over an hour discussing various projects from starting up the equipment to maintaining it. They discussed the normal day-to-day running of the business, personnel issues. It was a normal conversation, and its normality only struck John after he hung up the phone. Dad, where the hell are you? This isn't funny anymore. Mom is furious. She calls me every day asking if I've heard from you. Jim calls me too. Where are you and what the hell happened? Sid asks. Sid, I really don't want to go into details. It was really bad and I don't see us recovering from it. Mom said the cops are looking for you. What did you do? I hit someone. Hard, a few times, but not hard enough. That doesn't sound good, Dad. When are you coming home? I'm not sure I'll be coming anywhere but a short visit. I need to get some things in order and then I'll come back here. And where is that, Dad? Not in the village. As soon as I get things settled with your mom, I'll tell you and you can come over. Jimmy's furious too. He said your last conversation didn't go very well. He's very angry and wants to know what you did to Mom. She won't tell us, just cries a lot. He'll get over it, and so will she in time. Come on, Dad, just tell me what's going on, please? Just realize that I'm fine, and I'll be back soon. I'll let you know when I get there. Maybe we can have dinner or something. Kristen would love to see you too, Dad. Tell her I said hi, and I'll call her in a week or two. John ended the conversation, pulled out the chair he'd bought on the way here, and uncorked a new bottle of whiskey. John woke up to Sarah tugging on his arm. Come on, John. You need to go to bed. You shouldn't be here. Not now. I'm not a good person. Bullshit. Get up, go to bed, and we'll talk in the morning. You know you're beautiful, don't you? In your condition, everyone is beautiful. Not everyone. Sarah smiled as she watched John rise uncertainly and stumble down the 3 steps to the cabin. She laid John on the bed, pulled the blanket over him, and kissed his forehead when the first snore sounded. We'll talk in the morning, John. She watched him for a few minutes before getting up and quietly making her way down from the boat. John woke up trying to count how many hangovers he'd had recently. For some reason, that number was very important to him at the moment. John, get your ass out of bed. Come on, I made you some eggs and bacon. John stumbled back to the stairs and Sarah laughed. You did it better last night. Yeah, about last night. Was I an asshole? If so, I'm really sorry. You told me I was beautiful and that you loved me. If you meant it, that's fine. If it was bullshit, then... Yeah, you're an asshole. Oh shit, I'm sorry. I mean, yeah, you're beautiful. But John, I'm kidding. Relax. But I'm going to make you talk to me this morning. Can you dim the sun? It's awfully bright. John covered his face with his hands, wiping his red and watery eyes. It's good for you, vitamin D and all that. So, John, what's wrong? You really want to know my full and shitty story? Shitty, pardon the expression. You'll skip her for now. Yeah, I want to know what's eating you up inside, John. Keeping it all inside is not healthy. You know, I caught her cheating with someone, her boss at work. You say caught? But what does that mean? Overheard her talking? Saw her somewhere, found a check? No, I walked in while they were doing it. It's a sight I can't forget. Oh shit, what did you do? I punched him 3 times as hard as I could, looked at her, and left. And have you talked to her since then? I talked to her a couple times on the way here. I told her I wouldn't talk to her again unless she gave me a reason to. She didn't answer that question, so I haven't talked to her since. You look like you're in pain. Why don't you stop thinking about it? You drink yourself into oblivion every night. I loved her, Sarah. I loved her with all my soul. I cherished her. Your use of the past tense seems awfully final. Is there no chance of reconciliation? No. The luster is gone from that apple. We had one event when we first started dating, and I handled it. And this, well, I'll always remember that look when I think of her, when I see her. It makes me doubt myself, you know? Am I not good enough? Am I bad in bed? Maybe he's more. Sarah laughed. John, men are much more hung up on size than women. For some women, it may matter, but for most, it's an emotion. The biggest erogenous zone is the mind. You know what I mean? Then I must be lacking in skill. It was the little bald bastard. I know I'm not handsome, as they say, but he wasn't much better. Don't underestimate yourself, John. She told me the same thing once. Didn't help much, I should have known. I knew it was going to happen. Knew what? How did you know? When I was in college, I had a rule, developed in engineering courses combined with a little thought. Never date someone who is 1 or 2 rungs above you. It's always the one below who suffers. And here I was below everyone else. I was hurt. I should have known. John, if she's more than 2 steps above you, she must be stunning. Don't forget the slut. She has to be a guy's wet dream, gorgeous and slutty. Are you sure it's over? Yes, I couldn't be more sure. I don't know what to say. I can't say anything, John. You don't want to hear that everything will heal, that there are more fish in the sea, that women are like buses, that you'll wait a little while and another one will come along. Pick your cliche and insert it here. It hurts, it sucks more than I can describe, and the only thing that can heal it is time. I'm sorry. Thanks, Sarah. A tear rolled down his cheek, and the urge to take him in her arms and comfort him was almost overwhelming. John, when you get back on your feet, would you mind finding me? I don't mind being your traitor, you know that. Now is not the time, but I wouldn't mind, when you're back on your feet again, if you track me down. Sarah, I have to go back to the 1-2 point rule. You're out of my league, and besides, I'm going home next week to clean up, and when I get back, you'll be gone. It's okay, John, I'll see you again. I'm not asking for anything more than friendship. I'd like to think we'll see each other again, Sarah. I'd like that very much. On the flight from Miami to BWI the following week, John was deep in thought. As the plane took off over Nassau, he looked down and saw the yacht down deep, and then Sarah's boat coming up a few slipways away, and a sudden melancholy swept over him. Memories of sailing, of the peace and tranquility of such a loving family flashed through his mind. As soon as he boarded the plane, melancholy was replaced by anger, and his thoughts returned to Maggie more and more often. Damn bitch! When he exited the plane through the security door from which there was no return, Maggie was waiting for him. It had been almost a month. She'd lost a little weight. Bags had appeared under her red, puffy eyes. But even now, not in the best shape, she was beautiful. What are you doing here? Bob told me when you were coming. Please don't be mad at him. John, I'm so sorry. Please let me explain everything. I'm not interested in talking to you until you explain why. Are you prepared to answer that question? I can try, please. It's a yes or no answer, Maggie. Yes or no? I don't know, John. I ask myself over and over again why. How could I do this? John, please. I love you. I only love you, please. She began to cry, her eyes slightly red and tears flowing down both cheeks. That's too many words, Maggie. I've been traveling all day. I'm tired. I just want to check into a hotel. I'll call you before I leave, but you have to understand. Please, John. I'm begging you. Please forgive me. Please, can't we forget about this? You don't have to go to the hotel, just come home. Maggie, you knew the rules. Leave everyone behind. We were a team. No rivalry until death do us part. I thought that meant one of us had to die, but apparently that was before relationships died. You killed it. We broke up. End of story. I have to go. Maggie looked pleadingly at his back as he walked away, got into a cab and drove away. John, Bob exclaimed when John walked into the office the next morning. Hello, Bob. Good to see you. The clients have been asking for you more than anything. They want you to help them. We're having problems with the launch. Can I ask you to go down to St. Louis and help? They're really complaining and want you to be there for a week or two, at least long enough to straighten things out. I don't know. I need to see a lawyer. I think I'll go to Tim's, sort out the finances, figure out what else I need to do to get out of this story. Are you okay? I know that should have been my first question, Bob asked, putting his arm around John's shoulders as they walked down the hall. Bob, my head is clear, but emotionally I'm dead. I don't know if I'll ever get over it. I just can't see it. John reached across the table to Maggie's framed picture, picked it up, looked at it, and tossed it in the trash. Everything around here reminds me of her. I don't think I can do this. Maybe we should go our separate ways. John, you're the heart of this place. I know there are no irreplaceables here except you and me. I have a proposition for you. Once you're settled in, let's go to lunch and talk. I think there's a way to work things out. I don't want to hear it, Bob. Don't try to convince me to bring that cheating whore back. No way. I'm not talking about her. I'm talking about work. Bob laughed and headed for the exit. Bob, No, when I get divorced, I have to figure out how to make sure she doesn't get a piece of the business. I have to meet with a lawyer tomorrow morning and start the process. So you've already thought about that? Yes, I think I'll go to the police station and turn myself in. You'll fire me for misconduct, and I'll be a counselor again in a month or two when the divorce is final. Then she can sink her teeth into just paying for my counseling sessions. I have to see a lawyer first, and he'll take me to the police station. You'll have to work things out and through a lawyer. Do you think this asshole will press charges? I hope so. It'll give us a reason for a new agreement between us, but I'll sue him for alienation of affection, habitual non-compliance, moral reservation, and anything else Tim can think of and convince him to drop the charges. We can figure out how to set things up when this is over. You know I hate this, don't you? You and I built this place together. And I had a lot of fun doing it. It's okay. Things will go back to normal faster than you think. Well, at least the new normal. Okay, I've got to run. John, how's it going? Tim smiled, walking across the room with an outstretched hand. I've gotten better, Tim. It's personal, family, criminal, and business law. I don't know who to turn to. I was hoping you could direct me. John, what's going on? A month ago, I caught Maggie having fun with her boss. Oh shit, where? How? I caught her in my bed with him. Oh shit, what did you do? Beat the shit out of him, then left the country. Went on a ship to Nassau. Been there about a month, just got back yesterday. Does she know you're back? Yeah, met me at the airport. I have a couple questions. I want a divorce. Please, prepare the papers and serve them on her. Or tell me who I should contact to prepare the papers and serve them on her. I will also have to deal with the police. This is Brett, her boss at Dewey, Scrum, and Howe. It seems I'm wanted on an assault charge. Let me make a couple calls. Can you wait outside? Before you do, you should know that I want to use this. I think we can get him to back off if we threaten a lawsuit, but I should be fired for inappropriate behavior so she can't get my half. I didn't realize to take pictures, so I have no proof other than what I saw. He said, she said. I don't know if she can be charged with adultery, and I don't know if it would do any good if she did. Okay, let's get Mary and George here so we can present a united front against all this. I don't know how I can afford it. How much do you have to pay for it? John, don't worry about it now. We'll work it out. That's the story of my life. All in uncertainty. I hate it. Charges had yet to be filed, and the arraignment was one of the most humiliating ordeals John had to go through. When he appeared before the justice of the peace, it was via video link. George was standing next to him on the stand, and in front of him was a screen with the judge's image on it. So, Mr. Baker, It says here that you assaulted Mr. Brett Gunaris. Brett Gunaris, striking him several times in the head and face. How do you plead guilty? Guilty, Your Honor. But I didn't hit him in the head, only in the face, 3 times. Even on video, the judge was an attractive woman. Face slightly angular, eyes bright, expression intelligent. Do you admit to hitting this man? Please tell me there are extenuating circumstances. Yes, Mother, there are, George replied. Oh, please, Mr. Baker, enlighten me. I mean, no disrespect, Mom, but they were in the middle of, George interrupted. In flagrante delicto, Your Honor. Thank you, George. Yes, Mom. They were in a phlegmatic pose, I think. John smiled. What do you mean, seem? If it means they were doing it in my bed, in my house, then that's correct. A hint of a smile appeared on the judge's face. And you decided to hit him? Yes, Mom, 3 times. My arm was hurting, so I didn't think a 4th would be warranted. The state appreciates your restraint, Mr. Baker. You'll be in my courtroom, let me find out, in 2 weeks. Is that satisfactory to you, Mr. Hands? Yes, Your Honor, George replied. Mr. Baker, you are mistaken. Mr. Gunaris is campaigning for state's attorney. It is my understanding that he is very unhappy with the costs associated with his emergency care and the dental work that was required to repair the damage you caused. If he's unhappy, so is the district attorney. Be prepared. She smiled at John. Thanks, Mom. We'll be ready. George answered for him. Oh, and Mr. Baker, please don't hit anyone else. Yes, Mom. You are released on your own recognizance. Do not leave the state. Mr. Hands, you are responsible for making sure your client is in court at the appointed time. You're free to go. Yes, Mom, he'll be there. As George and John were leaving the stand, the judge heard George quietly exclaim to John under his breath, My God, she smiled. I've never seen her smile before. She seemed nice to me, George. She's never been called nice before, John, and the emphasis is on never. More like a hanged Harriet. That will be interesting. The next day, John received the termination papers with the courier, stating that the partnership was dissolved on moral grounds due to his arrest and pending sentencing. He took the letter to Tim's office and threw it away. Now there was nothing left for him to do but wait. The yacht was still in Nassau. He was not allowed to leave the state, and he was unemployed. He drove to the bay in a rented car, sat on the shore, and watched the water rise and fall until it was so dark that the water was no longer visible. The next day at 11 a.m., as he sat in his hotel room, the phone rang. Hello? John, please don't do this, please. Maggie, I told you I don't want to talk to you again unless you give me a reason. John, I didn't mean for this to happen, it just happened. We worked, then we went out for a drink, then we went dancing. And then we just ended up here. Maggie, do you realize how much this hurts? You ripped my heart out of my chest. The only person I could trust, the only person I could talk to, proud or embarrassed, the person who never judged me. I thought we'd grow old together, play with the grandkids together. Shit. John slammed his hand on the hotel room table. John, please let me explain. Let me show you that I love you. Please. Meet me. Talk to me, please. You explain. Okay, one try. Then you'll sign the papers and we can move on with our lives. I'll have a lot of free time in the next couple weeks and then I'll probably go away for a while. What do you mean going away for a while and why do you have free time? You mean after work? No, I got fired and I mean in jail. Pampers has pressed charges. My God, John, how did you get fired? You were partners? My God, I cost you the business. I can never forgive myself. I'm so sorry. She cried and gasped between words. If either of us is charged with a crime, the company will go to the other. I have a court date next week. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I won't let him do that, John. I won't. I don't think you have a choice. Are you still working with that bastard? John, please meet me. Let me see what I can do. Let me show you that I love you and only you. The fact that she was evasive didn't go unnoticed. It's too late for that. I just want to settle my affairs and get out of here. Please, John, just have lunch. We can talk. In a public place, I can't make too big a scene, please. Okay, tomorrow, at DeLuigi's in Little Italy. Noon? Okay, John, thank you. I love you, sweetheart. Don't say that and don't call me that ever again. You've lost the right to call me that. Okay, John. I am sorry. I'm sorry. He was sitting against the wall opposite the door when she came in. She was as beautiful as she had been in college. Sure, she had put on a few pounds and her eyes were red, but he noticed for the thousandth time that she had aged well. Maggie? He refrained from standing up as she approached the table. Not a hug? She asked with a strained smile on her face. No. John, you're so cold. We've spent 30 years together. You had fun with another man in my bed. How many times? How long did it last? It was only once, John. Do you seriously expect me to believe it was the first time? I don't believe you. John, it was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just happened. You sound like you slipped on a banana peel and fell on it. You don't have to be rude, John. That's what Becky said. Right. John, I'm so sorry. I can't believe you've lost your company. What are you going to do? Are you going to fight? No, it's in the contract. Just like the morals clause in your employment contract with the law firm. I'm going to sue him. You know, alienation of affection, sue the firm on the grounds that they didn't honor the morals clause against you and Pumper. I'll think of something. John, you're just trying to hurt me. It's okay, hurt me. I deserve it. Say whatever you want and I'll sit here and bear it. Take my job. Make me suffer. I'll sit here and take it. Just let me show you that I'm sorry and I love you. Who was that guy in college? Tim, I think. Remember him? Maggie lowered her eyes, tears falling onto the tablecloth in front of her. Yeah, quietly and sadly. Remember when I told you then that this was your only chance? Yes. You won't have another. How would you feel if you came home, excited to meet the love of your life and found him having fun with someone else in your bed? She paused. Oh my God, John, I'm so sorry. I didn't. You weren't just seeing me in your head at that moment, were you? It hurts, John. Pain sucks, doesn't it? You want to feel pain? How about boys calling you and asking you what you did wrong? Why did they think I did something wrong? What did you tell them? I I didn't I didn't tell them anything, John. I just told them, I just asked them where you were. Through her sobs, she spoke in scraps. You have to take responsibility for your actions. Until you do, nothing will change. I don't know if I'll ever get over it. I don't know if the pain will go away. I know I'll never be able to trust you again. I can't. I told you this would happen back in college. You're 10 against my 5. I'm done. If I don't end up in jail in the next 2 weeks, I'm out of here. Where did you go, John? I know it was on the boat. I went down there looking for you. I found your truck and took it home. It's sitting in the driveway. Give it to one of the guys. Give it to Sid. He hasn't accused me of anything. I don't know what's going to happen to Jimmy. He said, you think I have a girlfriend. Maggie's face went pale. Oh God, no. Tears flowed uncontrollably down her cheeks. I'm so sorry. What have I done? You've ruined this family. I don't know, and don't tell me. I'll think it was worse than anything you tell me, because I don't believe you anymore. John, please believe me. Please. It was just one time. We came home from the bar and it happened. It was a one-time thing. You slept with him, in my bed. The most vulnerable thing you can do to another man. In my bed. Anger threatened to take over again. Yes, John, I'm so sorry. I can't deal with this. I'm getting out of here. Don't call me. Don't write me. Deal with the boys. If they call me, I'll know you took responsibility. I'll let you know if I don't go to jail. If I end up in jail, you won't be my only call. John stood up, threw a couple of 20s on the table, and walked out. Maggie reached for him, touching his arm as he passed her. When he interrupted that touch, she lowered her head to the table. Mr. Baker, said the judge, I can see that you have taken responsibility for your actions. I can see that you're going a little fast, but otherwise you haven't broken the law? She was going over the papers on her desk, a wooden platform made of a light-polished wood that John couldn't identify. It wasn't oak or pine. She raised her eyes to him standing in front of her. Do you have any statements to make? Anything you want to say that will affect your punishment? Well, Your Honor, I'm sorry that my actions have brought us all to this place. Sorry for wasting your time. I wish I could say I won't do it again, but I can't promise. If I had caught my wife. He looked at George. In lewdness? The judge smiled as George whispered to him, Flagrante delicto. Yes, that's right. Flagrante delicto. I'd be inclined to hit him again. I promise I'll try to restrain myself. Mr. Baker, are you working? Working, Your Honor. But I was fired from the business because of a morality clause. I shouldn't have been arrested. I'd like to come back, but it depends on what happens today. Okay, Mr. Baker. The court finds that what we have before us is a law-abiding citizen who made a poor decision due to extreme stress. I'm going to treat this case as a PBJ, Mr. Baker. Do you know what that means? I'm sorry, Your Honor, I don't know. It means I'm not finding you guilty, but I'm not declaring you innocent either. I'm placing you on probation until sentencing. This will remain on your record for 5 years. You will be on unsupervised probation for 5 years. If you commit another crime in the next 5 years, you will serve the time your future crime deserves. But you will also be sentenced to time for that crime, most likely 5 to 10 years. Essentially, double or nothing punishment. Do you think, Mr. Baker, you can behave yourself? Yes, Mother, Your Honor. It will help me restrain myself if I ever find myself in this position again. Your attorney will have papers for you to sign. You're free to go. Thanks, Mom. John turned to leave, took one more look at the judge who smiled at him, and left the room. The lawyers, John and Bob, sat down at the table. I can't believe it, John. I've never seen her take it so easy on anyone before. I've never seen PBJ charged with assault. This is the first time you've been here. How will this affect our plan? How do I protect the business from Maggie? John, we can just take our chances. Just get back to work. If you don't, we may not have a business left to protect, Bob said. I'll keep working for the business. Tim, what if I went back to Bob as any other employee, not as a partner? We'll run the business, and when it's over, Bob can promote me to partner and we'll work as before. I think that could work, John. Let me go over the partnership agreements, see what provisions there are. In PBJ, you're not convicted of a crime, but I'm not sure you don't stay a partner. We have to do things by the book. Has she signed the papers? No, not yet. Bob, I'm going back to Nassau. I'll work remotely and figure out how to get her to sign the papers. I'll probably head to St. Louis next week or the week after. Are you sure, John, that you don't have a way back? No, I'm done. I just want to go. I want to move on with my life. John was walking down the dock toward the down deep, looked down, and saw the hole in the water where Sarah's boat was moored. For a moment he was overcome with melancholy as he realized she was gone from his life. He had enjoyed sitting and talking with her, and he would cherish the memories of the boat ride with her parents for the foreseeable future. She was proof that there were good, loyal women in the world. Maggie. She watched John walk out of the restaurant, head down, and felt his pain like a blow to her chest. She found it hard to breathe. Her hands were shaking. She wanted to take him in her arms, put her head on his chest, and just hold him tight. She wanted it to go away like it had in the past when he'd fought. She stopped in the middle of the parking lot and headed to her car, realizing that it really was over. She would never be able to hold him again. She kissed John one last time, feeling his warmth one last time. Tears flowed in a steady stream from under her sunglasses. Mom, really? Are you kidding? Jimmy asked. You got caught doing this? In Daddy's bed? She heard him exhale. Do you know where he is? No, I called him, but he won't return my calls anymore. I think Sid knows where he is, but he won't tell me. Mom, I'm so mad at you. Jimmy, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did this. I can't understand why. I still love you, Mom, but I don't understand how you could do that to Dad. I'm just so damn mad at you. I have to call him. I need to apologize too. I hope he takes my call. He's overseas, Mom. He doesn't want to talk to you. And I don't think he wants to talk to Jimmy either. The next call was answered by Sid. Sid, please make him talk to me. Please make him give me another chance. Are you still working with this guy? Yeah, what else am I supposed to do? I have bills to pay, a mortgage to pay, a car to pay. Get another job, Mom, unless this guy means nothing to you and you're ready to leave this family. If you don't, the family will probably leave you. It's up to you. Sid, why are you being so rude? I'm not the one who screwed up, Mom. You are. Oh my God, I really messed up, didn't I? Maggie hung up the phone and sat at the kitchen table with her head resting on her hands until the sun had set over the horizon and the room was dark. She walked to the bedroom and lay on the lonely bed in the dark until sleep finally came. She couldn't understand why the whole family was so angry. After all, it was one little slip-up that meant nothing. She hummed to herself the song of the cheaters, like the commercials. Impossible to get out of her head. John. The low crossing the Atlantic was the fifth named storm in this relatively calm season. Its intensity is forecast to increase to hurricane intensity by the time it crosses the Virgin Islands. In its path will be Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic. Then it should turn north, with Turks and Caicos to the east and Nassau to the west. By the time it gets north and starts threatening the United States, it will have reached Category 3 or 4. It looks like the Carolinas will be in its crosshairs later in the week. Fluctuations in either direction will affect the Turks and Caicos Islands or Nassau. Residents in these areas are asked to take shelter from winds up to 140 miles per hour and storm surges of 4 to 7 feet. John had 2 days to prepare for the storm. He planned how he would tie up the down deep and began looking around the marina, watching for other boats. More places than usual were empty, and John guessed that they had decided to return their boats to the U.S. for storage. The remaining boats could be a problem. He grabbed the spare ropes he had aboard the down deep and started tying the boats down. He had to struggle to accomplish 2 opposing goals. The ropes had to prevent the boats from colliding with the dock, but also be loose enough to withstand the pressure of the storm. He was greeted at the dock by the marina workers. "Hey kid, how's it going?" "Yeah, here, trying to secure the boats before the storm. I need more and longer ropes, and I could use an ace." "Why do you need an ace?" "I want to stretch the rope from my boat to the other shore so it won't snag on the dock. I also want to stretch a fishing line to these boats so they don't get snagged on the dock." "Give me some more rope, I'll be right back." "Hey kid, what's your name?" "My name is John, what's yours?" "Jose, I think that's Spanish for John, no?" He smiled at John, who smiled back. "I think you're right." They shook hands and Jose ran off, bringing 5 other men with him when he returned with a wheelbarrow full of ropes, old and new, still with tags on them. For a day and a half we tied up the boats. The sky was blue and clear. There was no wind, but there was the sound of waves from the shore nearby. "Sir John, where will you live during the storm?" "I don't know, Jose, hopefully in a concrete building nearby. I was going to try and get a room at one of the resorts." "You will stay with me and my family. It's safe here. We've been through many hurricanes and have never been hurt. It's not big or fancy, but it's fine. You'll see. Will you stay with us?" "Jose, thank you, but I don't want to inconvenience you and your family, although I appreciate it." "An inconvenience? What does that mean, Senor John?" "John?" "To disturb, to anger, to make it difficult." "Ah?" Jose smiled his crooked-toothed smile. "You won't bother us. You'll stay with us." He nodded his head, and it was settled. "We're leaving. Get the house ready." John entered Jose's house, almost a cinder-block shack with a tin roof, but they had driven uphill to get to it. That comforted John. It was dark inside, but neat and orderly. The house was a rectangular structure with a large room that took up the entire width of the house. It was partitioned off from the rest of the house with a curtain of beads. John heard a woman's voice from behind the curtain. "Que well?" John realized from the timbre of the voice that she, whoever she was angry. Jose rolled his eyes and walked through the curtain, and John was left standing there in indecision. He heard a conversation in an incomprehensible language. It started loudly, then quieted, and Jose came out from behind the curtain, followed by a beautiful Hispanic woman in her 30s. She had long dark hair, a curve to her figure, and she floated on the floor rather than walked. She held out her hand and John shook it. Her skin was soft, but there were calluses on her fingers. "You're Jose's new friend, aren't you?" she said with a strong Spanish accent and in broken English. "Yes, Mom, I'm here to—" He looked at the windows. "Help! Are you staying for the storm?" "Yes, Mom, if you don't mind." "Okay. Thanks, Mom. You work, I cook." John followed Jose out the front door. Jose had pieces of corrugated tin that fit each window. John held them in place while Jose screwed screws into holes that looked like they had already been used. As they worked, neighbors began to come over and help. Finished with Jose's house, they moved on to the next house and the house next to it. The sky was getting darker. The first storm clouds were coming. John was so busy that he didn't have time to call the boys or worry about down deep. He was doing everything he could to make sure he had a better chance of surviving the storm. Back at Jose's house, they settled on the wooden platform that served as the porch. a couple of canvas and wood chairs. The Spanish-speaking woman brought two cold beers, handed one to Jose, the other to John, and then turned and walked into the house. Not a word was spoken. "Is she your wife, Jose?" Jose leaned back and laughed at the top of his voice. "No, John. My wife is dead." He made a serious expression and thought for a moment. "She got sick. This is Hermosa, which means beautiful in Spanish. She is my wife's sister, my sister-in-law. She's very beautiful." Several men came over, sat on the porch steps, and accepted beers from Hermosa. She smiled for the first time in John's presence. It was a beautiful smile, teeth white and even, just a hint of wrinkles at the corners of her eyes. John sat and listened to the tone of the conversation between the men, not understanding the language except for a few phrases. He watched the sky and the few clouds that were approaching the island. He could have sworn he could see a curve. The wind began to pick up little by little, more than the light breeze he was used to, and he realized that a storm was fast approaching. He thought about Down Deep and realized he had done everything he could to protect the yacht, the boats in the marina, and the homes in the area. Focusing on the group, he saw that it had gotten even larger as darkness fell. When it started to rain, all the men stood up and shook John's hand, thanking him. He guessed that a de nada sounded in response, but he didn't know what it meant. One of the men hesitated while the others cleaned themselves up and was the last to approach John before he left. "Thank you, Sr. John, for helping us today. John, for helping us today. John, for helping us today. You're our friend, aren't you?" He smiled and shook John's hand. "Yes, we are friends. You're welcome, Senor." John smiled and bowed slightly. A storm came, not as strong as predicted, but still strong. The power went out as John slept on the couch and Hermosa stepped out from behind the curtain into the front room. The wind was roaring and John could barely hear her. She pointed to the couch and John got up and walked over to it. He smiled at her as she sat down. He put his arm around her shoulders, so small and fragile, and she clung to him as he hugged her. When there was a roll of thunder, she jumped up and he realized she was scared. They sat like that for hours, and his arm went stiff, and the tingles in it screamed for him to put his hand down. "It's okay, we're safe, Hermosa." Her only reaction was to snuggle closer to him. Her breathing became even, and he realized she had fallen asleep. As the roar of the wind began to subside, he too fell into slumber. He woke when she jumped up and almost as quickly got up. She was looking at him with an incomprehensible expression on her face. Part anger, part kindness, part shyness. Her straight hair was disheveled and swooped over one eye. She was stunningly beautiful. Jose came out from behind the curtain, looked at them both, shrugged, and said, "¿Qué pasa aquí?" She began a long dissertation that he really wanted to understand. She was animated. Her hands were flying in the air, but he didn't understand a word. He turned to Jose for clarification. "She said you helped her through the storm. She was scared and you hugged her. She also said you were a perfect gentleman. But I'm not sure if she's happy about that or angry. Women, you can't understand them, can you?" "I can't, that's for sure, Jose. You're ready to go to the dock and I need to check on Down Deep." Hermosa left the room. "I think she's making breakfast. Are you hungry, Senor John? We'll sit on the porch, okay?" John and Jose carried two chairs out to the porch, opened them, and sat down. John watched the neighborhood come to life. Fallen branches were taken to the curb, tidied up in front of the doors. Hermosa brought them each a plate of scrambled eggs with spicy salsa and small pieces of spiced beef. It was the most delicious dish John had ever eaten. John and Jose pulled the fallen palm branches out of Jose's ancient Toyota pickup and prepared to drive away. John reached out to shake Hermosa's hand, and she grabbed it, pulled him tightly to her, and laid her head on his chest for a moment. With a strong Spanish accent, she said, "Thank you." John bowed his head, got into the truck, and pressed himself against her. The trip was fast, and Jose jerked the steering wheel from side to side to avoid fallen branches and parts of houses littering the street. When they reached the marina, they found one boat flooded and the other parked, but the Down Deep had weathered the storm normally, as had the other boats. Jose's crew slowly made their way to the site and got to work setting the boat in the parking lot. Jose looked at John and said, "Thank you, Senor, for helping us get ready. We did a good job. I expected the worst. Jose, what are we going to do with the sunken boat?" You're helping. Sure, Jose, do you have airbags, slings, a compressor? Let's see, amigo. They found everything in the shed that John thought they needed. John picked out 4 medium-sized bags and looked at the compressor. Obviously, he had his doubts. It looks like crap, amigo, but it works. You'll see. John helped secure the airbags and went down into the water to run the straps under the sunken boat. He asked Jose to start the compressor and coughed as the ancient gasoline engine started, releasing a blue cloud that grew as it ran. The inflatable cushions, inflating, lifted the boat so that the keels were just above the water and the upper deck of the 40-foot sailboat leveled out. Jose found a gasoline-powered pump, and they sat in friendly silence, watching the water level in the boat slowly drop and the boat itself rise out of the water. They pulled the skiff out, and as a team, they removed the extra ropes from the boats, which they had secured before the storm. By evening, the marina was in very good condition. Senior John, thank you. John held out his hand, and Jose pulled him to him for a hug. Are you coming with me? He asked, raising his eyebrows questioningly. Thank you, Jose, but I'll stay on the deep. Please tell Hermosa thanks for everything. John started the generator on the deep and charged his phone. As soon as it had enough charge to turn on, it started beeping. He received several messages from Sid, 2 from Jimmy, and a message from Maggie. There was also a message from an unknown number. John, I know you weren't expecting to hear from me, but I heard about the storm and wanted to make sure you and Down Deep were okay. I'll be glad to hear back from you. Sarah. After assuring Sid that he was okay, he called Jim. Hi, I saw you called. Yes, Dad, Sid told me where you were. He was really worried about you. Dad, I'm really sorry. Mom told me what happened. I'm sorry I blamed you. It's okay, Jim. I told you not to take sides until you knew the whole story. I know, Dad. Can you forgive her? For the sake of the family? Jim, I can't. She's undermined my trust. I won't be able to do my job. I'll have to travel each time wondering who she's with this time. I want to so badly, but I just can't. Maggie. Oh my God, Becky, he's out there in the boat. I hope he's all right. Maggie, I'm sure he's fine. He knows what to do to be safe. If anyone can get through this, it's John. What are you going to do with him? There was a knock at the door. Maggie answered it. Are you Margaret Baker? Yes. May I see some ID? Oh my God, am I being served? Becky, he's really doing it. He's divorcing me. You've been served, Mom. I'm so sorry. Tears streaming down her cheeks, Maggie took the envelope and tore it open. She sank down on the couch, whispering, No, 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 please, God, no. I've lost him. I'm so sorry. It was just one time. It didn't mean anything. Maggie, I'm so sorry, but it did mean something to John. 2 days after the storm, John was sitting on the deck with pieces of the pump in his hands in the bright sunlight. What are you doing? Fixing the pump. Is that a live well pump? John looked up and saw Sarah standing there in a pink and white striped shirt. Sarah, what are you doing here? He stood up and walked to the side of the boat next to where she stood on the dock. I heard you had a storm here. I wrote you a message, but I never got a reply. May I come aboard? Please. Excuse me, let me take a chair. Where are you staying? I'm so glad to see you. I don't know where to stay yet. The hotels aren't all open yet, but I don't think there are that many people right now. And I'm sure I can find a room. I came here straight from the airport. I'm sorry, John. That was stupid. What do you mean, stupid? I thought you and I... Hell, I don't know what I thought. I thought it was over, that I'd never see you again. And then the storm, I watched it like a football game. Sick when she left you and scared to death when she came back. I couldn't bear the thought of you needing help. I'm sorry, John. I shouldn't have come. I mean, hell, you didn't even kiss me once. Sarah, I don't know what to say. I'm not even married yet. Don't get me wrong, the time we spent together was special. You're an amazing woman. Let me figure something out, get you settled somewhere and see what happens. Jose will help us. It's okay, John. I'm just... A tear slowly rolled down her cheek. I'll just go back to the airport. I have to go. Let's talk to Jose first. Hold on tight. John leaned over and kissed the top of her head, heading off to find Jose. Epilogue. All the next week, John and Sarah fished, sailed, relaxed on the beach, basically spent another week in the sun getting to know each other. They flew to the mainland together when John left for St. Louis, and in the months that followed, they talked on the phone often. John rented a house on the island and opened an office there. He made arrangements with Bob to return to the office for a few days each month, traveling to clients in Nassau and doing design work on the internet. Bob promoted John to shareholder, and they opened an office working on projects on the islands with 5 engineers and support staff. Maggie agreed to the terms of the divorce. She kept the house where the boys were raised. Liquid assets were divided equally. Maggie sued the law firm for harassment, and Pumper, as she now thought of him, was fired. He struggled to find a new job and soon left the area. His lawsuit against John was quickly dismissed. John received compensation from the firm, but set aside that amount for the grandchildren he hoped he would soon have. Sarah and Maggie met on a sunny afternoon when Sid and Kristen and Jim and Courtney came to visit. John stood on the porch of the bungalow he rented, and his first grandchild sat on his lap in a worn but sturdy rocking chair. Maggie stood at the foot of the porch steps and watched John play with the baby. "John, I thought we were going to do this together. God, I'm so sorry, but it really didn't mean anything to me." "Maggie, it meant a lot to me. It meant that everything we shared didn't matter to you. It meant that family, trust, all the morals we taught the boys meant nothing to you. It was something I couldn't forget. It killed my trust and broke my heart. I had to move on or die. It was that simple." "Hi, baby," Sarah said as she walked out the door carrying a tray with iced tea for John and a soft drink for the baby. She stopped, looked at Maggie, turned and looked at John, then back at Maggie and said, "Hi, you're so beautiful, just like John said. I'm Sarah." Maggie's shoulders slumped and a tear rolled down her cheek. "I hope we can be friends." Sarah held out her hand to shake. "Hi, Sarah. I hope so too. Take good care of him. He deserves it. You're a very lucky woman." The end. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.